Can Islam adapt? Yasir Qadhi and the modern world. Over the last 20 years, Yasir Qadhi has become one of the most influential English-speaking Muslim scholars. This documentary is not about attacking him or questioning his sincerity. Instead, it examines a series of documented shifts in his public teaching and asks whether those shifts reveal a broader pattern. Throughout this video, I will distinguish between facts about why Yasir Qadhi has publicly taught. Throughout this video, I'll distinguish between facts about what Yasir Qadhi has publicly taught and my own interpretation of why those changes occurred. Earlier, Yasir Qadhi presented human evolution as fundamentally incompatible with Islam, and often contrasted evolutionary ancestry with the Quranic account of Adam. In more recent lectures, however, he no longer dismisses evolutionary biology outright. Instead, he argues that Muslims should take the scientific evidence seriously while preserving Adam's unique theological status. He has illustrated this with the idea that evolution could appear completely continuous from a scientific perspective while God uniquely intervened in Adam in a way science could never detect. What changed? Earlier, the conflict was presented as, quote, evolution versus Adam. Today, the discussion is framed as, quote, evolution may describe biology, while Adam remains unique because of divine intervention. My interpretation is that this is an attempt to preserve the core Islamic narrative while accommodating a scientific theory that earlier presentations simply rejected. For many years, Yasir Qadhi presented Quranic preservation in the same way many Muslim apologists do today. The Quran is perfectly preserved, and the evidence supports that claim. During his famous discussion with Muhammad Hijab, however, he acknowledged that once scholars study the ahruf, qira'at, and manuscript evidence in depth, quote, the standard narrative has holes in it, and the topic becomes awkward. Later, he clarified that he still believes in Quranic preservation, but defended a more sophisticated theological explanation rather than the earlier simplified narrative. What changed? His belief in preservation remained. His explanation of how preservation should be understood became considerably more complex. Earlier presentations generally reflected the familiar end times narrative. Dhul-Qarnayn built a barrier, Gog and Magog remain restrained, and they will emerge before the Day of Judgment. More recently, Yasir Qadhi has acknowledged that these stories raise difficult questions in a world mapped by satellites, aviation, and modern geography. Rather than insisting on one literal reading, he increasingly emphasizes uncertainty, the weakness of some narrations, and interpretive flexibility where he believes the sources allow it. What changed? The emphasis shifted from straightforward, literal expectation to a more cautious methodology that distinguishes between stronger and weaker reports. Classical Islamic law recognized slavery and concubinage under defined legal conditions. Yasir Qadhi does not argue that Muslims should revive those institutions today. Instead, he argues that slavery simply cannot be reinstated in the modern world because Muslims are bound by international agreements and because contemporary scholarly consensus rejects its reintroduction. The conversation moved from explaining how slavery functioned within classical Islamic law to explaining why it cannot return in the present age. Earlier conservative presentations often defended hudud punishments as divinely revealed justice. In more recent discussions, Yasir Qadhi repeatedly emphasizes that hudud require legitimate authority, an Islamic legal framework and conditions that are absent in modern secular nation-states. He therefore argues that these punishments simply cannot be transplanted into contemporary societies. The focus shifted from defending the punishments themselves to emphasizing that the many reasons they are generally inapplicable today. Earlier Salafi discourse frequently emphasized refuting theological opponents. Today, Yasir Qadhi places much greater emphasis on Muslim unity while still maintaining theological disagreements. Likewise, he strongly condemns ISIS, describing them as Khawarij rather than representatives of normative Islam. His public priorities shifted from defining boundaries within Islam toward preserving the broader Muslim community in the face of external challenges. Yasir Qadhi has spoken openly about how academic study exposed him to historical questions that traditional seminaries often do not explore in depth. His later work reflects greater willingness to discuss the historical development of theology, manuscript studies, and scholarly disagreement while still attempting to remain within Sunni orthodoxy. Rather than preserving theology as entirely static, he increasingly acknowledges historical development while defending core Islamic beliefs. Supporters of Yasir Qadhi will likely argue that these examples demonstrate intellectual maturity and deeper scholarship. My interpretation is different. Looking, excuse me, looking across evolution, Quran preservation, eschatology, slavery, hudud, and sectarianism, I see a consistent movement toward interpretations that are more compatible with modern science, historical scholarship, and contemporary moral expectations. Whether that represents a deeper understanding of Islam or an adaptation to the modern world is a question I leave to you.